The lesson topic for this video is finding a least common denominator. So for starters, we probably just want to get the steps written in our notes so that you remember the process for finding the LCD, or least common denominator. First, we will factor each denominator. Notice this does not say to factor the numerators. Then we're going to start writing our LCD by writing all the factors from our first denominator, and then we're going to include any factors from the other denominators that is missing from our original LCD. Now again, you probably understand this better after we look at some examples. So jot these down and then let's try some on the next screen. Okay, so before we look at examples with larger polynomials in them, let's just look at our good old fractions, 1/2 and 2/5, and talk about how in the past, when we were to add these fractions or subtract them, we couldn't do it right away because we didn't have a common denominator. So again, using that list from the previous screen, the first thing we're going to do is factor each denominator. All right, the 2 is completely factored. 2 is in lowest terms. You could put 1 times 2, but that's not necessary. And 5 is as well. So then to find our LCD, we are going to write all the factors of the first denominator, which is simply a 2. And then we are going to include into our LCD any factors of the second denominator that we didn't already write down. Well, we haven't written down 5, so we're going to write a 5 down. So I'm going to write times 5. Because they're factors, it's multiplication in between, not addition or anything like that. So our LCD for this one would be 2 times 5 or 10. We're probably mostly going to leave it in factored form. We'll talk about that again on our more complex examples. So the second one, to write this in factored form, we would want to find all the factors of 36, the denominators that is. We're going to write all the factors of 36. If you think about 36 is divisible by 2, I'm going to write down a 2, and that will be 2 times, it would be 2 times 18. Now 18 can still be factored down to 2 times 9, so we can write 2 times 2 times 9. All right, and then 9 is 3 times 3, so we can write 2 times 2, times 3 times 3, and that is our completely factored form of 36. Okay, sorry about that sloppiness. Let's write the next one. 48 is 2 times 24, but 24 can be broken down, so this is 2 times 12, and 12 can be broken down. 2 times 12 is either 2 times 6 or 3 times 4. Whatever way you want to look at that. So 2 times 6, and 6 can be broken down into 2 times 3. All right, so if you think through that again, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 3 is 48. All right, so these are completely factored, and now again we write down all the factors of the first denominator for our LCD. Okay, so we're going to write 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. And now we include any factors of our second denominator that we did not already list. Now remember, you have to think of these as individual factors. So this 2 is already accounted for right here. This 2 is already accounted for right here. So those are both accounted for already. And then we have another 2 here, but we don't have another 2 in our LCD. So we need to include another 2, and you'll probably see that there's another one yet, and so we need to include another 2. And then lastly, we have a 3, and we already have a factor of 3, so we don't have to include that one. So this is our LCD, and 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 3 is 36. And then we have 36 times 2, which is 72, and 72 times 2 is 144. So our LCD here is 144. Okay, so now these are examples that are going to be a little bit more similar to what we've been working on. As you can see, quadratic situation, factored situation, etc. So let's look at this one first. If we need to find the LCD, the least common denominator or lowest common denominator, first we're going to factor each denominator. Right here, 8x squared can be rewritten as 2 times 2 times 2 times x times x. And then our other one, 12x, can be written as 2 times 2 times 3, so that's 12, times x. Again, we're going to start by writing all the factors of the first denominator, so 2 times 2 times 2 times x times x. And then we're going to include any additional factors we need that we don't already have listed. We already have a 2. We already have another 2. We do not yet have a 3, so we need to include that with our LCD over here. And we do already have an x as well. Now, we can multiply 2 times 2 times 2 and get 8, and then multiply it by, this is 8 here, times the 3 is 24. And x times x is x squared. Again, the LCD can be written in either of those ways. All right, now this one. Okay, this is going to look a little bit more familiar from what we've been doing in class. We're going to start by factoring our denominator, by factoring out a GCF. That's the first type of factoring we always look for. And we factor out a 3. Now, over here, this is a trinomial with a equals 1, so we can put our parentheses down right away. We can think about negative 10 as our c value is either 1 times 10 and one of them is negative, or 2 times 5 and one of them needs to be negative. Notice that in order for these to add up to negative 3, which is what we need the positive to be here and the negative to be with the 5. So we factor x plus 2, x minus 5. All right, now to find our LCD, we are going to list all the factors of the first denominator. And again, that is 3 and x plus 2. Those are factors. And then we're going to include in our LCD any factors from the second denominator that we don't already have. We already have the factor x plus 2, but we do not have the x minus 5 factor, so we have to include that. Here's our LCD, and we're ready to go. In the next lesson, excuse me, in the next lesson we'll learn how we use this LCD. Okay, so our last two examples. And what I would suggest that you do is pause the video, run through those steps to find the LCD, go off to the side here, jot down your LCD, and then restart the video. If you want to fast forward to the end and find out if you have the correct LCD, and if you don't, you can rewatch the example, and if you do have the correct LCD, then you are probably good to go. So please do try both of these in your notes and check to see how you did on them. And of course, as always, ask if you have any questions in class. Okay, so you should have arrived at, our first step is factoring each denominator. This is going to be x plus 2, x plus 4 for our factors there. And this one will be x plus 4, x plus 4. Hopefully you factored those both correctly. We're going to start by writing all the factors of our first denominator, x plus 2 and x plus 4. Now this part is a little tricky, so pay attention here. I already have this factor of x plus 4 in my LCD. Do I have another factor of x plus 4? No, I don't. So I do need to include another x plus 4 in this one. So hopefully you have that additional x plus 4. You definitely need it. All right, the other one, hopefully you factored out a 3x. And you got x minus 2. And in the second denominator, we have the magic number steps that we need to perform to factor this. Negative 1x times, times 6x, or negative 2x times 3x. Be careful with this one. It is not this factor pair here. It is this factor pair here, but I have to change this to positive and this to negative. These add up to negative 5. It's the only way you can get negative 5. All right, factoring with magic number here. Our parentheses match, so we're going to get 3x plus 1 as one of our factors, and x minus 2 as our other factor. All right, so we're ready to write our LCD finally. We're going to start by writing every factor of the first denominator. Remember, 3x can be thought of as two separate factors, 3 and x, and then x minus 2. And then we don't have a 3x plus 1 yet, so we're going to continue to add to our LCD, 3x plus 1. And we do already have the factor x minus 2, so this is now our LCD.